talk about the absolute emotional nuclear bomb that just detonated at Derek Baldwin's private memorial. This was supposed to be a quiet, respectful gathering. Ashley Morgan and Shanice Johnson meticulously planned this intimate ceremony to honor a man who died a hero, a man who took a bullet to save a police officer. It was meant to be a space for healing, a place to share memories, perhaps laugh through the tears about that adorable cat rescue badge Derek was so proud of. But in the world of Beyond the Gates, peace is an illusion, and grief is a weapon. When Grayson Perez walked through those doors carrying a floral arrangement, seeking his own sliver of closure, he didn't just step into a memorial. He walked directly into a firing squad. Let us set the scene and analyze exactly what went down, because the psychological ramifications of this single event are going to shatter Fairmont Crest for months to come. Grayson arrived with good intentions. He wanted to pay his respects. He wanted to find some peace and perhaps silently prove to Ashley that he still cared deeply for her and the man she loved. But grief does not care about good intentions. When Ashley saw Grayson standing there holding those flowers, something inside her completely snapped. We are not talking about a quiet rejection. We are talking about a visceral, public, and utterly devastating explosion. Ashley did not just ask him to leave. She lost all control of her blinding rage. She lunged forward, slapping the floral arrangement out of his hands. The flowers scattered across the floor in a chaotic mess, a brilliant visual metaphor for Grayson's completely shattered life. And then, in front of everyone, in front of the closest friends, colleagues, and community members of Fairmont Crest, Ashley screamed the absolute unthinkable. She didn't just call him a bad boyfriend or an insensitive jerk. She publicly outed him. She pointed a trembling, furious finger at Grayson and screamed that he was an accomplice to the very plasma theft ring that indirectly caused Derek's brutal death. Just let that sink in for a moment. The entire room went dead silent. Every single eye turned to Grayson, and the collective look of absolute disgust and sheer horror was palpable. This wasn't just a rumor being whispered at the country club. This was a direct, public accusation from the grieving ex-girlfriend of a fallen hero. Grayson stood there, completely paralyzed by the sudden onslaught. He desperately tried to defend himself, his voice cracking as he pleaded with the crowd. He tried to explain the nuance of his nightmare. He frantically stated that he was forced into it, that he was backed into a corner, and that he never ever wanted Derek to die. But here's the harsh reality of human nature. When a community is grieving a senseless tragedy, they do not want nuance. They want a villain. They want someone to burn at the stake to make the pain make sense. And Ashley just handed them Grayson Perez on a silver platter. The logic behind Ashley's actions is deeply rooted in trauma. She is drowning in sorrow, clutching Derek's Medal of Honor, and trying to make sense of a world where her protector is gone. By destroying Grayson, she is attempting to regain some semblance of control over a completely uncontrollable situation. But in her blinding grief, she has unleashed a chain reaction of catastrophic proportions. Let us talk about the massive secret that was just blown to smithereens. Jacob Hawthorne, our deeply traumatized undercover cop, has been desperately trying to keep Grayson's involvement in the plasma ring a tightly sealed secret. Jacob knows the intricate, dangerous web of this criminal enterprise. He knows that Grayson is merely a pawn, a man drowning in debt whose lab was closing, a man manipulated by much darker forces. Jacob kept this quiet to protect the ongoing investigation and perhaps to protect Grayson from the very mob justice we just witnessed. But Ashley, fueled by pure, unadulterated rage, just took a sledgehammer to Jacob's meticulously constructed house of cards. She didn't just ruin Grayson. She compromised a highly sensitive police narrative. Now we must address the elephant that was notably absent from the room, Brian Baldwin. Derek's grieving, furious father was not at the memorial. He was entirely too consumed by his overwhelming agony to attend. He was not there to witness Ashley tearing Grayson apart. But do you honestly believe for 1 second that this massive bombshell is going to stay within the walls of that room? In a town like Fairmont Crest, gossip travels faster than a wildfire. The rumors are already spreading. The whispers are morphing into roars. When Brian Baldwin, a man who has already directed immense, terrifying anger toward Jacob Hawthorne for relying on a civilian, hears that Grayson Perez was involved with the criminals who killed his son, what do you think he will do? Brian is a ticking time bomb. He is a father who feels the justice system has failed him, a father who had to fight just to get his son's body released by the coroner. When the rumor mill delivers Grayson's name to Brian, we are going to see a confrontation that could turn deadly. Brian will not care about Grayson's debt. He will not care that Grayson was pressured. He will only see the face of the man who helped the people who put a bullet in his boy. This is no longer just about a ruined reputation. This is about Grayson's physical survival. The immediate fallout for Grayson is absolute devastation. The truth has completely destroyed his standing in Fairmont Crest. The community that once viewed him as a hardworking, decent man has instantly turned its back on him. He is a pariah. He is the town's ultimate scapegoat. His life has been violently turned upside down, and the psychological toll this will take on him cannot be overstated. He is already struggling with severe financial debt, dodging calls from collectors, and dealing with a sick mother. Now, he is entirely isolated. He cannot show his face at the local diner, he cannot walk the streets without being glared at, and he certainly cannot find legitimate work in a town that believes he has blood on his hands. This brings us to a terrifying twist in the narrative, a brilliant but dark psychological pivot. By completely alienating Grayson, by stripping away his support system and publicly branding him a criminal, Ashley might have just created a monster. What happens to a desperate man when society completely locks him out? He turns to the shadows. Grayson might be forced to leave Fairmont Crest entirely, but what if he stays? What if the actual villains of this story see a deeply broken, vulnerable man who now has absolutely nothing to lose? This is where my absolute biggest fear lies, the Impaler. The ruthless, uncaptured mastermind behind the plasma ring is still out there, lurking in the dark, watching the chaos unfold. The Impaler is a predator, and predators look for the weak and the isolated. Grayson is currently the most isolated man in town. I strongly theorize that the Impaler will swoop in and use Grayson's destroyed life to his advantage. The Impaler knows that Jacob Hawthorne is already suffering from severe PTSD and survivor's guilt. What better way to exact revenge on Jacob than by manipulating Grayson, the very man Jacob tried to protect, into becoming a weapon against the police? Ashley's outburst may have inadvertently handed the ultimate villain the perfect, desperate pawn. And let us not overlook the massive shift in Jan Morgan's perspective. Just days ago, Jan was the voice of reason. She ran into Grayson at the store and kindly encouraged him not to give up on Ashley, advising him to give her space, but holding out hope that their relationship could eventually be repaired. Jan saw the good in him. But that was before the explosive truth about the plasma ring came to light. The moment Jen realized that Grayson was intertwined with the very criminal element that brutally murdered Derek, her maternal instincts kicked into absolute overdrive. Jen has done a complete 180-degree turn, and frankly, her logic is flawless. She has completely forbidden Ashley from continuing any sort of relationship or contact with Grayson. Jan is not acting out of malice. She's acting out of pure, terrifying survival instinct. She looks at Grayson and sees a walking death sentence. She sees the danger that follows him. Jan refuses to let her daughter become collateral damage in a criminal underworld. She does not want to wake up one day and find out that Ashley died a senseless, violent death just like Derek did. Jan's absolute refusal to let Grayson near her daughter is the final nail in the coffin of his former life. He has lost his community, his reputation, and now the one family that might have shown him grace. We have to ask ourselves, is Grayson truly a villain, or is he the ultimate victim of circumstance? Yes, he made terrible choices. Yes, he got involved with dangerous people, but he was drowning. He was a man trying to keep his head above water, and now he is being punished with a severity that feels almost apocalyptic. Ashley's reaction was entirely justified from the standpoint of a grieving widow, but her public execution of Grayson's character lacked the foresight of what it would unleash. She wanted him to hurt, but she may have just endangered everyone she loves by pushing him past the point of no return. As we look ahead, the board is set for a massive collision. Jacob's secret is out, compromising his undercover work and his mental stability. Brian Baldwin is on a collision course with Grayson, fueled by a father's unmatched grief. Jan is building a fortress around Ashley. And Grayson Perez is standing on the edge of a very dark cliff, staring into an abyss that is staring right back at him. Will Leslie Thomas swoop in and drag him into her own messy orbit with that clinic job offer? Or will the sinister forces of the plasma ring swallow him whole? One thing is absolutely certain. Fairmont Crest has fundamentally changed. The lines between the good guys and the bad guys have been violently blurred. When a community demands a monster, sometimes they end up creating one. How long until the blood from Ashley's broken floral arrangement turns into something far more real and far more dangerous? Stay tuned, because this nightmare is only just beginning.